So it has been a road. I mean, you and I were connected in the past, and then the gaming culture and internet culture changed, right? And you said that you kind of came back into gaming culture and discovered a whole different kind of vocabulary going on.
When I got into gaming in the 90s, I wasn't into internet culture at all. Or it was maybe 89 or 90, but when I came back, the Forge was there, and I was discovering all kinds of games like Sorcerer and Troll Babe and others that I had never imagined could be possible before. And it was really thrilling.
I think my response to that is, me neither. So, well, I appreciate that. But what's kind of interesting in this context is that a number of people are responding to my recent video and asking about those final statements that I made. And you were talking about how you had recognized, some of the behaviors that I had described. And I'm not... there's a fine line, right? Either we, pick healing scabs so that they don't heal, which is one thing. So, you could imagine kind of a cottage industry and, Zach hurt me like this, going on indefinitely, which isn't going to do anybody any good. And then you have also, however, the opportunity at least to compare thoughts. And so I'm kind of hoping to aim in that direction. And particularly in terms of like what we do now. We say the internet, but the internet is nothing like it was 15 years ago. There's just no comparison at all. Particularly, absolutely. I mean, think in terms of the people who were born into it. I mean, what if you were 10, 15 years ago? I mean, that's 25 now. I mean, I feel so old, right? It's kind of like when you're driving, you're like, who let these kids drive? It's the notion though that somebody could have come into internet culture with all of these social media platforms. Yeah, imagine coming into the internet culture and all these platforms are there and all the notifications. You sign up for shit, right? And so your screen's like all notifications all the time. And you kind of feel, I'm trying to guess, people must feel as though there's an actual structure there. Whereas if you came into the internet in the 90s, it's just a fucking void. And that there are just people doing things in different places. What's the joke? The cloud is just someone's a computer.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about people who are really shattered. I mean, to you and me, it's just some Yahoo managed to get traction.
Yeah.
To younger people, this is literally like an institutional shakeup.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that a lot. I follow the OSR server on Discord, and I followed Zak's Discord server too, which has been a complete ghost town. And a lot of people from Zak's Discord migrated to the OSR server, and it's like people opening up like the Soviet Union collapsed or something, and all of a sudden everyone's they're not afraid.
Yeah, I must speak. Yeah.
And they're I've seen people like kind of really tearing at themselves, like, oh my gosh, I really looked up to him and I believed in all these principles he talked about, and you can have principles without having it attached to a person.
Correct. I mean, they can always be that's the thing, right? Are we talking about ideals and thoughts or claims, like what gaming is or how we should deal with each other and stuff like that? And that's one thing. And we can deal with a person's private life. The classic conundrum is when you really can't find anything to critique in the person's public persona and thoughts. I mean, this is what we run into with celebrities and musicians and philosophers all the time. What they said is actually really, really, really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And yet then you turn around and discover that they were this heinous asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And so you feel like you're in this dichotomy. You know, I can't give up on this intellectually. I mean, this is solid. But my ethics are, you know, I got to disavow this guy. So what am I going to do? I don't think this is the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of my first steps, is to say, are we really in that conundrum? And the answer is, in my opinion, not really. I mean, it's worth pointing out. This goes back to people long ago. There were a few people who were very active on the Forge, especially in the early days, who really set themselves up as kind of the philosophical nannies. Mm-hmm. You know, they were like, okay, well, you are doing this and these people are doing this, but I shall oversee it. I shall judge this relative to gaming at large. And I remember, you know, arguing with my co-founder, Clinton, you know, what has this guy ever done? And I don't mean publishing. I don't mean like, you know, famous publishing, you know, street cred, anything like that. I was talking about actually anything to say about role-playing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what is it? I mean, he's just a dude with a keyboard. I mean, just like anyone else. So, you know, where is this kind of, well, I have the oversight, I have the, you know, the perspective, I have the judgmental role, you know, I represent gamerdom. And Zak was really good at taking that role. People out there say, gamers in general think, OSR people, D&D people, you know, real gamers. And, you know, speaking for them. And so that to me is always where you say, okay, now wait a minute, what is he saying is actually the case? Let's critique it from the ground up. So that to me is kind of the big question for a lot of people who feel trapped between, well, the guy said a bunch of great stuff, but he's so terrible. And I want to say, well, let's actually take a minute to examine that first claim and see if we're, you know, if that's really the dichotomy we face. I mean, if we're talking about Friedrich Nietzsche or something like that, then then we talk, you know, then we have a conundrum. But if we're talking about, you know, a lot of other people, maybe we don't have that crisis of intellect to cope with. And so that's kind of one thing I wanted to ask you about is in what fashion did you find yourself engaged?
Well, I think I found Zak's blog in 2010 or 2011, and I appreciated some of the creative ideas he came up with as far as, you know, populating a fantasy with interesting stuff. But the thing was, with the family, I wasn't super engaged with following every debate or everything.
God, no. Yeah.
The thing, I remember in 2011, I saw him engage in a really long debate kind of with another amateur game designer. And the other guy wasn't very intellectually serious. Like, I mean, he wasn't rigorous in his thinking. And so it was really easy for Zak to disassemble that without even making any statements, just by asking questions. And I at that point I thought, I appreciate someone out there who will ask questions like this and press for serious answers. Then I guess because of him, it was probably because of him that I got involved with Google Plus, because he championed all the bloggers to go to Google Plus, and he shared his circles with everybody, creating like this huge network of people with very disparate interests and concerns. But within that, you could find people who were having interesting conversations. And
now I got caught up with it in exactly the same way. Now, again, maybe a little more superficially, in that I ran across his blog just because I was doing a search for rust monsters.
Okay.
Of all things. And and I read a couple of pieces on his blog, like really isolated. And I just thought I thought this was hilarious, basically. The sort of audacity of the, playing with the porn stars and stuff. And I was like, well, is this bogus, or are they really playing? And I watch half a video or something. I was like, oh wow, they're really playing D&D. That's fun. Right. Okay. So I knew nothing, no context. And so I just thought this was fun. At some point or another, I think he even emailed me at one point. And he actually did one of those blasts on Google Plus, where he had all these people include me in their circles. And it seemed as though it was actually a pretty positive interaction. Now, I really didn't know the full breadth of his writing or participation.
You're the reason I connected to the OSR.
Well, that's not too ironic, because the roots of many OSR practitioners, people who self-designate that way, lie in the Forge.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to self-publishing. So, and there are people who are big names in the OSR who got their start at the Forge Gen Con booth. There's a lot of roots there. Yeah.
Jim Radji posting on the Forge back in the day.
I don't know if he ever did, actually.
He had something that he was sharing under the title of Lamentations of the Flame Princess. But I think he was creating his own system rather than building it on the chassis of BXD&D.
Wow, I didn't realize he actually had posted there. I wasn't sure that's the case. But I know that there were a lot of people, particularly before those initials took hold. There were a lot of people who partook of the dialogues and so on. And even built their own games there and stuff like that. So anyway, therefore, it seemed to me, I've sort of superficially, I was like, oh, good, people talking about D&D, great, enjoy.